What's going on? What's going on? What's going on, everybody? This is your guy, Mike Johnson, here from Mandatory Conversations podcast with Mike Johnson. And on tonight, I am super excited to do this podcast because I get a chance to do it with two of my Silver Fox Squad brothers. One is here with me on tonight, and the other one is on his way in a second. The first gentleman up is Mr. Titus Unlimited. You have seen this guy everywhere. He is our fitness guru. This is the guy that keeps us straight in the Silver Fox Squad. So if you've ever wondered why all of us look a certain way, why we all maintain our weight, why we're all this, that, and the other, this is a good part of that right here. This gentleman right here, Mr. Titus Unlimited. I'm not going to say too much about him because I can say a lot about him. I am going to tell a funny story in a minute, but I'm going to let him first introduce himself. So Mr. Titus Unlimited, go ahead and introduce yourself, and I'll get through the rest of the stuff we want to talk about, sir.
Well, thank you for having me, Michael. It's a pleasure, and you said everything. I guess you said more than I was going to say. So I'm Titus. I'm here. Let's get into it.
Okay. All right. Cool. So on tonight, we're going to talk about discipline over diet, why fasting works for men 50 plus. And this is a really, really, really big deal for those of you gentlemen out there who haven't tried fasting yet. I'm going to really suggest at the start of this that you do so. Please entertain doing it. Quick story. About 3 years ago, we were in Miami and we were at Titus's place. And for those of you who don't know, he is a gourmet chef. He doesn't talk about this much. I don't know if he has all the credentials in order, but I can tell you the food is Michelin star, that whole night, all of that kind of stuff. 5-star Michelin, all that kind of good stuff. And we're there and we're talking, and he and I having a conversation. It's a private conversation, somewhat private anyway. And we're talking, and out of the blue, he says to me, "Hey man, you carrying a lot of water weight, right?" So I'm not gonna lie to y'all. I got offended. I'm like, "What the hell are you talking about? Is that a way to cause somebody fat?" He's like, "Michael, you carrying water weight. If you just got rid of this water weight, you could slim down pretty fast and you would look great." And I was mad as hell, but I was like, you know what? Okay, cool. So I carried a little attitude, but then we talked a little bit more afterwards. So about 2 months later, I think we had an appearance to do. I forget where we were. And I didn't necessarily tell Titus all of what I was doing or how much of his advice I had taken, but I had literally taken all of his advice and put it into play. As a result, I lost about 12, maybe 15 pounds or so in that 2 months. So when we came back together, everybody was asking me, it was like, "Mike, are you all right?" I'm like, "Yeah." Why we said it's like, "Man, you look great. You look like you lost all this weight." I was like, "Yeah, I did. I lost this weight." And then I told them what Titus told me. And I said, I just followed his advice. I began to fast. I cut back different things. I changed my eating strategy, so forth and so on. And that was maybe 2-3 years ago. And I've been able to actually take that and go even further. And it's funny, Titus, because I look back at some of the pictures right around that time and I can see how puffy my face was. I can see how, my lymphatic system probably was off, all this other kind of stuff. And, here today, as I'm looking in the camera, I can see, even my wife was saying to me the other day, she said, "Man, I'm looking at you from when you first joined the squad to where you at now. There's a big difference." And part of that, man, I just want to publicly say thank you for saying that, for being bold enough to say that. And two, for all the information that you gave. And, Titus has done this for pretty much everybody in the group. Now, I don't know if everybody's followed the advice, but I certainly did. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Titus so we can talk about a lot of things as it relates to fasting, the different types of fasting, which method you might prefer. We're going to talk about autophagy. We're going to talk about insulin resistance. We're going to talk about all of these different things because they all play a part of your physical health, especially if you're over 50. And again, I want to say, if you have not taken the time to pay attention to your health at this point, listen, you better start tonight. Tonight is going to be the night you want to start. You're going to get a lot of great information. So do me a favor, as Titus comes up, go grab a piece of paper, get a pen, and start taking some notes because I promise you tonight it's going to be very informative. It's going to be a great show. With that, I'm turning over to my brother Titus. Do your thing, bro.
Yeah, well, so fasting. Well, first of all, thank you, Mike, and I'm glad you listened. you and a few people, but yeah. So when I talk to people about things like fasting, I like to preface that by giving a little bit of history. Fasting is not new. So a lot of times people are talking about fasting right now, and they're approaching it like it's a fad. Fasting is not a fad. Fasting has been one of the oldest medicines for healing the human body. And I want for people to remember this: when your body is in a fasted state, that is when your body can rest, regenerate, recuperate, and repair. And all four of those things are separately important. Okay. Because when your body is processing food, it cannot rest, as in all your organs, everything has to be involved in this processing of food. It cannot rest. And because it cannot rest, it cannot recuperate.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine if I took a runner, right? And I just had you running sprint, slow, sprint, slow, sprint, slow, but you never got a chance to stop, right? You never regenerate, because guess what? In order for you to recuperate, rest and recuperate, the next thing is to regenerate. When you run all that time, you cannot regenerate power to run hard again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then if you cannot regenerate, your body can never repair. Okay. So when you think about fasting, think about your body has 20 men at work at all times in your body. All right. And these men are responsible for taking the food from your mouth straight through your bowels and out. There are portions of them that help you absorb food, and there's portions of them that help you put it into waste and start to store it away. Well, now, if you're eating, they're at work. What happens when they get the food almost out and you start eating again?
Mm.
Some of them have to go to the front of the line and start processing.
Yep.
What happens to the full digestion of that meal and elimination of that meal? It's going to miss some parts because you don't have your full body's capacity. And imagine rinsing and repeating that weeks, months, years. What starts to happen is you start to accumulate small particles of undigested food. People don't think it's a lot, but poor food combination, poor food timing, and excessive eating, you might accumulate the size of the tip of a ballpoint pen daily. That doesn't sound like a lot, but when you multiply that over 10 years, now you start to see that little that bulge and everything like that. Now, when waste accumulates in the human body, right, there's a thing called toxic reabsorption. So you see what comes out your back end.
Yep.
Well, imagine if you have small pieces of that just gathering up in your colon. Well, after a certain point in time, your colon is porous. It's going to seep back out of your colon into your bloodstream. That's when you start to see allergic reactions, rashes, inflammation unexplained, and all these other things. All right. And it just happens over time. All right. So that's why it's so important to give your body that time to rest, regenerate, recuperate, repair. So here comes fasting. And as you said, there's many different modes of fasting. There's many different times of fasting. But here's another fact. 70% of the world eats only one time a day. Until 1900, right? 3 meals a day was never heard of. As a matter of fact, 3 meals a day was invented by the Rockefeller Foundation to increase consumption.
Yep.
All right. So now, but they also understood that a body that is constantly eating cannot regenerate and repair, which then opens up the door for what? Dis-ease.
Yep.
And
can you break that down too when you get a chance? Disease. Dis-ease
Yep. Is anything that throws your body out of line. Okay. And so, and when we look at our medical system treats symptoms. It doesn't treat root cause. All right. And so you go into the doctor. I mean, you and I both know you have people who have been taking high blood pressure medication for 10 years and they still go and get the same medication. Well, the medication is not changing anything. And I've worked with people, and then within 45 days, because we address the root cause, I get them off blood pressure medication. I get them off diabetic medication. Why? Because we address the root cause. We address what the dis-ease is. So I love to use this example. Think about somebody who, you ever had a rock in your shoe?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so you get a rock in your right shoe. Well, after a while, that rock becomes uncomfortable, right? So what happens? You overcompensate and you start putting more pressure on your left. Now imagine if that goes on for a week or a month. Well, after a week or a month, you're going to build an imbalance, and that's going to cause some level of dis-ease in your body. What happens now? Your left side starts to stiffen up. You start to cramp up. The longer it goes from your heel to your hip, up your back, because you're constantly walking in a slight way like that. By the time you go to the doctor, you got a stiff back, stiff neck, and stiff shoulder. Now, what do most doctors do? Well, what most doctors are going to do, they're going to give you something for the stiff neck, stiff back, stiff shoulder, but they're never going to ask the question, how did this start? Where did this start? Okay. And they keep treating that. So now you have muscle relaxers, you have chiropractor, you have all these different things, but you never took the rock out of the shoe. Yep. And so that's how these problems keep going and going and going.
Hey, Titus, hold on 1 second. Let me just do this real quick because our other Silver Fox Squad brother just joined us. Kendall Gill.
What's up, fellas?
What's up, pretty boy? We see you out there getting all dolled up.
Yeah, I'm about to go on air, man. So, I'm glad I was able to make it on and everything. I want to say hello to everybody and glad to join my Silver Fox Squad brothers, Mike and Titus. So what's up?
Thank you, man, for joining us. We're talking about fasting on this evening. Titus has been giving us some great information. And what I'm going to do for a second, Titus, I'm going to let, because I know Kendall has to run. He's going to get on air in a minute. For all of you who don't know, I'm sure you know who this guy is. This is Mr. Number 13, Mr. Kendall Gill, professional or former NBA professional basketball player, one of our Silver Fox Squad brothers, a good friend, mentor, all that kind of good stuff as well. And Kendall, I wanted to bring you on because you know a lot about fasting. You fast yourself. And I wanted you to talk about, you were in the NBA for 15 seasons and you had to keep your body up. But now you're a little over 50. And so
I'm a lot over 50. I ain't a little over 50.
And so it's different being in the NBA. You have that regimented, daily routine you got to go through. Now you're 50 years old. There's a lot that you have to do, or 50 plus here. There's a lot that you have to do differently that you did then to maintain your body and all the other kinds of things. And again, I really wanted you to talk to the folks, Kendall, about what your daily regimen is, in terms of your eating, how you take care of yourself, but specifically around fasting. And I want you to also talk about what you and I are getting ready to do or what we're starting.
Okay, well, I actually fast 1 day a week, because that's just been my routine for the longest. I started that maybe 3 or 4 years ago. So, I normally fast on Mondays for 24 hours, but then once a year, I will do a 7-day fast. And, that completely resets everything in the body. And, during that time, I don't work out or do anything strenuous because, my body is going through a transformation, because of the fasting. So, I don't want to put any other stress on the body during that time. My normal eating schedule is I eat egg whites and oatmeal every morning religiously. I always maintain, and Titus can tell you a lot about this, but I always try and eat a lot of protein because as we get older, we start to lose muscle mass, and the muscle mass is what we need to prolong our lives and not get sick. I mean, you see a lot of elderly people now, they don't have the muscle mass that they once did. I'm not going to be like that. Titus is not going to be like that. You're not going to be like that. Because, we are aware that we need muscle on our body in order to have a long, long life. When you start to lose your muscle mass, man, that's when all of the health problems start to creep in when you're older.
Yep. And I know you got to get ready to run, Kendall and Titus. I don't know if you want to respond to that a little bit. And Kendall, how much time do you have, by the way? Because I know you got to run pretty quick.
No, I got about 6 minutes.
You got 6 minutes. Okay. So Titus, you want to respond to any of that, and then Kendall, I'm gonna jump back over to you and talk about what you and I are doing.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, Kendall's spot on about fasting, making it a part of your routine. I always tell people fasting should not be done haphazardly. It should be part of a scheduled routine. Knowing what to do going into a fast and knowing what to do coming out of a fast. So, and yes, he is right. Our muscle mass is directly tied to our longevity. As a matter of fact, they said the most important muscle to maintain is leg strength,
Yep.
leg size, and leg strength, because that is largely responsible for your mobility, your balance, and all those things like that. And you can't do that if you're not consuming adequate amounts of protein and keeping your body up to par. So yeah, he's 100% right on that.
Question for you, Titus, because I know that you do this. I know at certain points in time you take a break from exercising. I mean, like a day or so, or whatever, not prolonged periods of time. But during the fasting period, I've always been taught, not for the like a really long 7-day period. I haven't done a 7-day fast in a long time, but I typically, like you guys, I fast every single pretty much week. I'm doing at least a 1-day, 24-hour day fast where nothing is going into my body except liquid. Liquid meaning either tea or water, no food, none of that other kind of stuff, right? Do you exercise, Titus? Because I've been told you should exercise because you're at your optimal or your peak for being able to get the most out of your body during that time. What's your opinion about that?
I do exercise. However, I do a 40-hour fast every other week, and my 40-hour fast starts at 6 p.m. on Friday and ends at 12 noon on Sunday. I do work out in between. Obviously, it's not going to be a vigorous workout. However, when you're doing a 7-day fast, right? It's advisable to lay off. And the reason why is because a 7-day fast is a little bit harder on the human body because after 48 to 72 hours, unfortunately, your body will start to eat muscle. So you will lose some muscle mass. And so in the interest of not losing muscle mass, I shorten my fast, but I do frequent 40 to 72-hour fast. That's the max I will do.
Got it. And so thank you for sharing that, because I haven't done a 7-day fast in a long time. I remember, Kendall, when you did the last one, and I'm gonna probably the next one that you do, I don't know when you're planning to do it. I'll probably join you in doing it. But I did want to announce that Kendall and I, we talked about this before. He and I, we actually, did you start yet?
Yeah, I started last night.
Okay, good. Me too. So Kendall and I, we're doing a 3-day fast. And Titus, I want you to jump in on this and talk about it. We're doing a 72-hour fast. And a 24-hour fast is great, but a 72-hour fast is better because you can see so many different results. And I wish the next time we do it, Kendall, we should take pictures, video, so you can see the change in your body, the change in your face, because your insulin levels are down. You know, there's no food for the most part in your system. And if you're doing a little bit of exercise, you're going to be able to see it. You'll see your stomach flatten out. You'll see your face begin to sink in. You're going to see your skin begin to look better. And all these different kinds of things. And so we started it. We started last night. We're going to go all the way through Saturday evening. So if you want to join us, please join us. It's not as difficult as most people would think. It's really just a mindset and a mind shift in thinking about how you go about doing it. So instead of focusing on food, you're focusing on your health. You're focused on the end part as opposed to, stuffing your face with food. And Titus, you mentioned this already, and you can jump in here, Kendall, wherever you want. Titus, I want you to talk about this. Why it is that people, or the psychology, people don't realize why they eat so much, because our bodies really do not need 3 meals a day. We can go with 1 meal a day. We can actually skip a whole day and not eat anything, and your body will be completely fine. You won't have headaches and some of these other kind of stuff. Now, if you have health issues, there's something completely different. But for the most of us, you can do this. You can do some type of fast. But Titus, I want you to jump in, and Kendall, you jump in as well.
Okay.
Well, Kendall, go ahead, because you might be on a short leash.
Well, I like the 36-hour fast because one, it really gets to the visceral fat in your body or around your organs. It also takes care of inflammation, the inflammation around your joints, that, a lot of us, when we get older, when we're bending down and, getting up out of couches and things like that, we can feel it in our joints. And that's just inflammation. And when you fast, especially if you go and do a 7-day fast, all of that goes away. I can remember, doing my 7-day fast, and I would, the colors would change. My eyesight would get better because, I'm not eating sugar. Sugar's
Yep.
been totally eliminated from the body. My thinking is clear. I'm a lot more sharper. So these are all the benefits of it, and once your body gets done eating through the fat, then that's when it goes to the cellular level. It goes into your cells and starts eating all of the junk in your cells that you put in, like all that glycogen, all that sugar you've been eating all year, And when I come out of my 7-day fast, I feel like a whole different person. And
Yep.
it's also even a 72-hour fast. It's also a spiritual and mental journey as well, because now that you have the discipline to do whatever. If you can go 7 days without food, you can discipline yourself to do whatever you want to do in life.
Yeah.
Because I'm honestly, like, look, I done played against the greatest athletes in the world. I've trained my whole life for 57 years. I've trained, and that fasting is the hardest thing I've ever had to do, a 7-day fast. So when you reach that level, man, you think you can do anything.
Yeah.
As I mentioned to Michael, the hardest urge impulse to control is the impulse of hunger. And once you can control your hunger, you can literally control anything. So Kendall, you're 100%
Yep.
right.
Yep.
And as far as I go, sometimes I go an entire week and I do 24-hour fasts. So when I'm fasting like that, I eat once a day and I eat at 4 p.m. Once a day at 4 p.m. When you talk about insulin and inflammation, even when you're doing a 24-hour fast, right? What you eat makes a difference in your body's inflammatory response. So when I'm doing those fasts like that, I keep my protein high, my fats high. So let's say chicken and avocado, steak, avocado, fish, avocado. I cut out the fruit. I cut out a lot of the starchy vegetables and all that kind of stuff like that. And that will also keep your insulin levels low. So even when you spike slightly from eating, because you're going to spike a little bit, it's going to go right back down. And the cellular cleaning that Kendall was referring to is called autophagy, and that tends to kick in after 14 to 16 hours. All right, and so yeah, when you do a 7-day fast, you get a longer period of autophagy. But I also tell people, remember this, right? If I'm doing 24 hours, I'm getting 4 hours or so every day, and it still adds up. So, for the people who can't or who are uncomfortable going 7 days, try the 24, 24, 24, 40, 24, 24, 24, 40. And that's another good cadence as far as fasting goes.
Yep. Kendall,
Yeah.
you still good or you got to run?
I got 2 more minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you wanted to add to the conversation again before you get ready to run? I know we're on your schedule, so I wanted to make sure I respect it.
Yeah, I just want to say that, fasting should be a normal part of your life. We have been eating the foods that they have here in this country, not very good. I mean, a lot of foods in this country, they won't even allow in other countries. And we've been consuming that for years and years and years. So in order to reverse the effects of eating a lot of fast food your whole life and things like that, I mean, fasting helps you reverse that, and I can tell, that it really helps me, especially when I come out of a fast, man. I feel like I'm almost 18 years old, because my body has been reset. And that's the reason why I do it all the time.
Yeah.
And then one thing to remember, and Kendall hear this too, anything that can degenerate can regenerate.
Yeah.
If you give it rest, recuperation, regeneration, fuel, and repair. And a lot of times, that regeneration and that recuperation and that repair is going to be dictated by the nutrients you put in your body and the absence of toxins. All right. So if you, even for people who have, like Kendall says, he sees his eyesight improve. I don't know if you guys notice this. I'm in my mid-50s, just like most of you guys, but I'm one of the very few who don't need glasses to
That's
read.
true. Yep.
Right. And the reason why is I literally saw my eyesight improve over the last 20 years because I consume so little sugar. Because what people don't understand is sugar or macular degeneration is your body being slowly broken down by sugar and all these oxidative things over years. And then what happens is as we get older, we eat for comfort. So we don't eat as many nutritious foods, right?
Right.
And so now you talk about natural aging, degeneration, and then you're not feeding yourself. And that's what leads to your body getting older, your eyesight getting bad, your skin getting saggy and stuff like that. So my skin is pretty much exactly the same as it's been for the last 20 plus years. And the reason why is, once again, I don't break it down and I constantly nourish it. And when we get to our age, sometimes we have to increase our levels of nutrients. So it's not only the foods we eat, but then we have to turn around and supplement, because I'm pretty sure one of you guys have owned an old car, classic car. The maintenance on a 70 SS Chevelle is way higher than on a 2025. And so think about the human body. The same levels of magnesium, iron, vitamin, you need higher levels so that your body will be able to absorb, so you can keep track. Because there's certain natural things as we get older, testosterone gets lower, growth hormones gets lower, glutathione gets lower. So we have to not only eat, we have to then supplement, but then we'll also have to look at activities that boost those things as well.
Yeah. Kendall, where you at on time, bro? Or you can just jump off whenever you're ready, but I want to make sure we respect the time.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna jump off right now. I got to go on set, but it was great being on, sharing my story about fasting. I highly recommend it. That's why we're doing this podcast, and there's so many benefits to it. I mean, you're investing in yourself when you start to fast regularly.
Yep. Kendall, thank you so much, boy. We appreciate you, man.
Okay, my man. Y'all take it easy.
Good show, Kendall.
All right, thanks. I appreciate it.
Okay, man. So, hey, Titus, this is what I want to do, man, because you started talking about it. Kendall started talking about it, and I'm glad you kind of took us in this direction. Most people don't realize that they need supplements. They think that that's for other people. They don't realize that your body has lost, you're not getting enough iron, you're not getting enough magnesium, you're not getting enough zinc, you're not getting enough, all these different things for your organs, right? For your body to function at its optimal or to be at its peak self. You need these things. And I didn't start, honestly, until you told me about this 4 years ago. I didn't take any supplements, and I realized, man, what's going on? Why am I not feeling as well? I feel a little sluggish over here. My body is doing this, or it's not doing what it used to do. And I know as we get older, you can't do all of it, but you still should be able to do a lot of it. And so I want you to talk about a couple of things. What are those nutrients that we need? What are those vitamins we need? What are those things that we need to keep our body, those supplements we need to keep our bodies optimal, especially, and as it relates to fasting and some of these other things. Talk about that, and also talk about the line of products, and just get into all of that for us, please.
Well, one of the reasons why a lot of men, a lot of us, don't want to take supplements, because men have the misguided thought that we're super.
Talk about it. Talk about it.
Yeah, everybody's Superman, and a lot of times, luckily for us, the women around us don't tell us the truth. But you're not the same as you were 20 years ago. All right. And so in order to maintain that edge, right, you have to look at what your body has now become. Over years of eating high carbohydrates, sugars and stuff, you've literally diluted your stomach acid. So you hear people say, "Oh, I don't really digest meat that well right now." And the reason why is because you keep eating all this sugar, and that's diluted your stomach acid. So one of the first things I help people do when I cleanse their system is build up good stomach acid. The next thing is,
hold on one second, Titus, because that's interesting. I don't want you to skip past this. What do you actually do to help them get through this process, or to be able to build up the stomach acid? What is it that you're doing?
Extended periods of times without sugar. Yeah.
And when you say sugar, because you taught me this as well, it's not, some people or a lot of people think when you say sugar, they think candy. They think,
Oh,
that kind of
no.
stuff. Talk about with that, because you had to help me with this. This was important. So please break that down.
Well, a slice of bread will spike your insulin more than a teaspoon of sugar.
Oof.
Okay. So one of the biggest things for people to give up is bread. Bread, rice, pasta, all your processed carbohydrates, right?
That's where I wanted you to go. Yep.
Okay. And so the only carbohydrates that actually can be beneficial, honestly, will be things like sweet potatoes.
What type of
But,
sweet potatoes, by the way? Because you taught me this as well.
well, there's a variety of sweet potatoes. So any one you like. Now, the darker the sweet potato, the higher the antioxidants. So I posted just the other day a reel about purple sweet potatoes.
That's
Those
where I
are
want
much
you to go.
higher in iron, and not only that, but they have these things called anthocyanins, which actually are great for colon health and can kill colon cancer cells. So when it comes down to your things like that, the brighter the color, usually the better when it comes down to nature. But before I get further, let's get something straight. One of the things that we've been deluded as far as nutrition goes, right? We've been deluded to believe that we need carbs. Your body does not need carbohydrates. If you actually look at it, there's no recommended daily, the recommended daily amount, RDA, for iron, all those different things. There is none for carbohydrates. Your body does not need carbs. Oh, but you need carbs for energy. Wrong. Your liver will take nutrients from your protein and other things, and it will create glucose for your body to use. So even if you went on a 100% a carnivore diet, once again, I'm not suggesting you do that. But if you did that, your body would be perfectly fine. All right. Now, when it comes down, we do get good nutrients from things like fruit and vegetables and stuff like that. But make no mistake, you don't have to eat that.
Wow.
Okay. You do not need carbs. All right.
So you said you don't need the macaroni and cheese. You don't need Is that what you're saying, Titus?
No, you don't. All right. And so literally, I'll be honest with you. If the only two sources of carbs you ate for an entire 6 months was sweet potato and avocado, and you paired that with protein, you'd be perfectly fine.
Wow.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, you'll be healthier than most.
Holy smokes.
Yes.
So let's get into this, man. Let's talk about these supplements, man. This iron. Right. Can we start with magnesium first? And then kind of work around and some of the other things. I wanted you to talk about that because I've just boosted up my K2, D3, and magnesium. But I want you to talk about it.
So when we talk about the human body, we're carbon-based. All right. So that means we need minerals to function properly. So you remember we were growing up to say, eat your vitamins, take your vitamins. Vitamins will do nothing in the absence of minerals.
Yep.
Now, luckily for us, most of the food that are nutrient dense that have minerals also have vitamins. Okay.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So the most important nutrient to the human body is vitamin D. It is so important that the body doesn't leave it up to you. The body creates it itself. And vitamin D is created by a biochemical reaction between two things: cholesterol, which your liver produces itself. Dietary cholesterol has nothing to do with your cholesterol count.
Just because you said that right there, talk about that too, because I know we've talked about this, but and then come back, but because that's important too. Talk about that, the cholesterol.
Yeah, so your cholesterol is produced in your liver. Your body senses that you need cholesterol and produces it. Now, what a lot of people don't understand is cholesterol is your body's repairman. So literally, if you had a meter on your body, right, and you cut yourself, right, your cholesterol levels would tick up. Why? Because your body requires cholesterol to heal. So when you see people that have elevated cholesterol, right, well, you have to ask this question. What's going on in your body that is causing your cholesterol to be elevated? All right. So it's almost like if I went to the doctor and I had a high white blood cell count. The doctor shouldn't say, well, we need to lower your white blood cell count. The doctor say, where's the infection?
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times what's causing that elevated cholesterol level is going to be things like inflammatory things, like the sugars, like the oils, the fried foods, the breads, and all these things like that, because those things irritate your arteries. And so your body senses, oh, it's in these trouble, and it keeps sending cholesterol. That's how that works.
So now get back to the vitamin. You were getting to the vitamin D.
Vitamin D.
Uh-huh.
So your body uses cholesterol and the ultraviolet rays from the sun, and it causes a biochemical reaction, and that's how your body creates the functional vitamin D3.
Mm-hmm.
Now, funny little note to note that is that when your body creates D3 on your skin, right? You know how some people go out in the sun?
Yep.
And then as soon as they come back from the beach, they go in straight and take a shower? You got to sit for about 4 to 5 hours to let that absorb in.
Ooh.
And they found that out because there were some surfers out in, I believe it was Australia, and they did a study on them, and they were low on vitamin D. And they said, wait a minute, these guys spent a whole bunch of time in the sun. But what happened is as soon as they got done surfing, they would get underneath the showers and shampoo, and they kept washing it off. So
Wait,
you want to
wash off? You can wash off vitamin D. I did not know this.
Because the chemical reaction happens in your skin. And so if you don't allow enough time for it to absorb into your body and go into your liver, right, you will wash off a good portion of it.
Holy smoke. So just everybody in the comments, I want y'all to understand what he just said. I had no idea you could wash off vitamin D or D3. I had no idea whatsoever. And by the way, I should have said this earlier. If you have questions for Titus or myself, or even Kendall at this point, please go ahead and throw them in the comments. We can see you. We'll definitely respond to you. But Titus, go ahead. Sorry about that.
Yeah. So kind of crazy. Now, here's another thing. And this is especially for African Americans or people of African descent or people who are quote unquote colored, right? Because of our melanin, right? Which gives us protection from UV rays, right? If a white counterpart stood in the sun for 30 minutes, right? We have to stand in the sun for double the time to absorb the same amount of UV rays.
Is it because of the melatonin or the melanin?
The melanin, exactly. Because the melanin acts as a protectant barrier, but it also slows down the penetration of those rays.
So therefore, that's why there's the decrease in D3. Gotcha.
Yeah, so that's why you find a lot of people of African culture, African descent, African Americans are usually vitamin D3 deficient.
Yep.
Right. And especially with the stigma in America too, a lot of people don't want to be dark. So then they also stay out of the sun. So that compounds. So almost without reservation, if you are Black, living in America, you should be supplementing with D. Yep. And let me tell you a couple of things that are directly linked to low vitamin D. Did you know that fibroids is a symptom of acute vitamin D deficiency?
Had no idea. You teaching now. That's why I told people get the paper and pen ready. You're gonna teach.
And this is my favorite line. I always say it. Don't take my word for it. Look it up. Fibroids are acute vitamin D deficiency. So whenever women are suffering from fibroid issues, one of the first things they want to do, right, is start supplementing vitamin D. And the second thing, stop consuming inflammatory foods.
Such as?
Fried food, sugars, bread, pasta, alcohol, all these things. Because especially in people of African descent, right, it will have a detrimental effect on your D levels.
Question, you mentioned this, and because I've heard variant things. So it also, the oil that you use, the type of oil, a seed oil versus, I guess, a vegetable oil.
A fruit oil.
Or animal oil, yeah.
So
can you talk about those, please?
So the only safe oils is an avocado oil, a coconut oil, an olive oil. Those are all fruit oils, okay? Whereas a sunflower oil has to be pressed under high heat, mixed with hexane and all these different things. Corn oil, canola oil, vegetable oil, all those things are toxic and rancid. Okay? So avocado oil, coconut oil, and and olive oil, and then things like ghee and lard.
Mm.
Those are the safe things to eat.
Wait, you said, whoa, did you say lard? Like lard,
Lard.
like what people
Like
used to
lard,
eat down the south?
like animal fat lard. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. Who
Yes.
would have thought? Okay.
Because it's actually from nature.
Mm.
Right.
That's crazy. So the
So-
Cisco's of the world and all these other kind that most people buy.
Yeah, we can go into the history of that really quickly.
Yeah, please.
All right. So in 1950 some odd, there was a scientist by the name of Ansel Keys. And Ansel Keys, we now know, was paid to do what was called the lipid hypothesis to prove that saturated fat or animal fat was bad for you. And so he ran a study on 22 countries, right, to prove that animal fat was the problem and led to heart disease. Well, the hypotheses didn't line up right. So what he did is he cherry picked the data and used 6 countries. And when he did that, he presented it, right? And they ran it up the chain, and all of a sudden it became health policy. And because of Ansel Keys, right, the American Heart Association was funded by the people who bribed Ansel Keys. And those people were Procter and Gamble. And why did Procter and Gamble do all this? Because Procter and Gamble had a byproduct of petroleum manufacturing that they were trying to sell. And that byproduct was Crisco. And so that's when the vegetable oil craze started going, and they start telling you lard and eggs and meat were bad for you, and use Crisco. Yeah. So that's the history of that. And mind you now, just 10 years after that, there was another study called the Minnesota Coronary Study that totally debunked it. And that has been debunked so many times, but it has remained. Why? Because Procter and Gamble's have deep pockets, and they bought every single one of your senators, House of Representatives, FDA chiefs, and everything like that. And once again, don't take my word for it. Look it up.
Got it.
Yeah.
Back to these minerals. Or talk to us about these minerals.
So your minerals work as a net. So imagine having a net, right? You can have the strongest net possible, but if you have a hole in your net, the net doesn't work. And so a lot of times I see people taking single minerals a lot. Oh, I need to get my magnesium up. So you take magnesium. Well, you have to have all your minerals at optimal levels, and then you can raise your magnesium up. Because if all your other minerals, which are interconnected with your magnesium, are not in good numbers, the magnesium won't work as well. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I put vitamin D as number 1, even though magnesium is considered your body's master mineral, is because in order for vitamin D to be properly absorbed and used in the body, you have to have optimal levels of magnesium. In the absence of magnesium, you can take all the vitamin D you want, it won't work.
Wow. So with that, question for you, couple questions. One, vitamin D plus K2 or D3 plus K2. Can you talk about that? And also talk about there are different, I think there's at least 3 different types of magnesium.
Right.
And can you talk about those types of magnesium and what they all do? Because they all do something different, but they all work well for your body.
So those are your synthetic magnesiums, okay? And that's why I always tell people supplements are that. Supplement. 80% of your nutrients should come from food, all right? 80% of nutrients should come from food. There's certain magnesiums that help your muscles relax. There's certain magnesiums that even help you go to the bathroom, all right? The most functional magnesium for the human body is magnesium glycinate.
Yep.
And the reason why is because glycinate absorbs better than all of them and does everything still, okay? And so if you are going to supplement a single pill magnesium, right, you want to supplement magnesium glycinate. Unless you were trying to take something to flush your stomach at, that's when you do like calcium citrate or something like that. But I wouldn't really advise that either. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And as we're talking about, I'm sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry.
No, what was your question?
No, I was going to say, because I don't want people to get lost in the conversation, in that I don't want them to understand that this is divorced from fasting, because all of these things play a part and they work well together. So I was just going to ask you to, help, because I don't want people to get lost in that, because you need all of this stuff for your body to work well, and you need it, during this fasting process and even afterwards.
So fasting helps your body reset. But when your body's now reset, you need the proper tools in your body so your body can work well. And that's where the supplements come in. All right. And that's where adequate levels of minerals come in, right? And adequate levels of your other micronutrients from your antioxidants and all those different things like that. And that's why we eat a balanced meal, right? But balancing that meal is not as hard as people think. Because what we want to look for is we want to look for the most nutrient dense foods. So if I was making a grocery list of foods, and I talked about this yesterday with a post I made, right? A lot of times people complicate nutrition. The truth of the matter is the most successful, healthy people and or athletes, right, are very regimented people.
Yep.
Like a lot of times, Michael, as is funny, but I eat the same thing 5 days a week.
And what is that, by the way? I kind of know what it is, but let the people know.
I toggle between steak and avocado, fish and avocado, chicken and avocado. And sometimes if I go and I find a good price on something, I'll eat the same steak and avocado 5, 6, 7 days straight.
What about the purple sweet potato?
The purple sweet potato, I sprinkle that in here and there when I feel like it. But it's more of for me, it's more of a want and not a need, because I do understand that especially if I'm trying to drop body fat, right? I don't need that. Now, if I'm maintaining, then yeah, I'll have some purple sweet potato. I can bake that, or sometimes I make it into roasted fries or something like that. Yeah, that's what I do.
What about Titus? What about greens? Because we hear a lot about you should always have some sort of dark leaf vegetable as a part of your balanced meal. Can you talk about that as well, and which particular ones I guess you would recommend, or just talk about that in general?
So yes, greens can be beneficial, but greens can also be very detrimental. You don't want to eat raw greens. The human body does not handle raw vegetables very well. Okay. The human body does
salads
not.
And all that, like you see people eating salads every day. It's a big industry.
It's not as beneficial for you as you think. Okay. And so, like, take for instance, slightly cooked spinach is always going to be better for you than raw spinach. Right. So there's some greens that you can eat in small quantities raw that are very good for you, like arugula. Arugula is very good for you in small quantities because it's very high in nitric oxide, which is great for boosting your nitric oxide levels, boosting your circulation, things of that nature. But kale raw, horrible for you. Collard greens, you want to put a little bit of cook on that, because if you don't, those things are very high in fiber. But you hear the word they use, it's called insoluble fiber. So all the nutrients that's in kale and all that stuff like that, you're not getting that because your body can't break it down properly. And so what a lot of people will see is when they eat raw kale and stuff like that, they see a lot of it come out on the rear end. You see it mixed in because your body can't break it down. Now, is it good for fiber? Yeah. But if you're looking for it and thinking, oh, I'm getting all these nutrients from it, no, you're not. And that's why you see a lot of your people who are plant-based or vegans have all these nutritional deficiencies, iron deficiency being one of the higher ones, calcium and all these things like that, because they're eating these raw foods and they're expecting these things to absorb it and not. So some of the most successful people who are plant-based, if they're honest with you, they're also taking a lot of supplements.
Wow.
Yeah. Or they're doing a lot of juicing and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's do this. I want to get back to this because all of these things again play a part in the fast, because you got to know what to do before you go to the fast and then after you go to the fast. But since we're talking about it, let's talk about what we're doing in the fast itself. What should, what is the optimal fasting like? Is it a dry fast? Is it, after sundown, before sunset? How do you choose the schedule? What are you doing during the fast? Are you just drinking water? What are the, I know what I do because what you taught me, I kind of studied that, but there are a lot of other things you could do. But I want you to talk about that again, the different types or modes of fasting, and then what you do in the fast. What do you drink? How do you get the most out of the fast?
So, first of all, dry fasting. Dry fasting is not necessary at all, ever. It is not beneficial. There is no edge you're going to get from dry fasting. The only people that will do a dry fast is for religious reasons. I can't argue with your religious reasons, but if you're talking about health reasons, there's absolutely no reason why there's no benefit to doing a dry fast. Full stop. All right. Now, when it comes down to when you're fasting and drinking, herbal teas are great. One particular herbal tea that is a good mixture that I like is I make it all the time. And actually I just made a new formulation is hibiscus with yerba mate tea. Yerba mate and hibiscus are really good at lowering your blood sugar. But one of the things that's really good about yerba mate tea is yerba mate is a natural GLP-1 inhibitor. So all the Ozempic that people are taking, yerba mate will naturally give you the same GLP-1s, but just at a lower level, which will give you or will delay your hunger response for a longer period of time. So yerba mate tea mixed with things like hibiscus for the taste, and hibiscus helps to lower your blood sugar and blood pressure. That's an excellent tea mixture to have when you're fasting because you won't get the hunger pains as much.
Question, yerba mate, spell that for us, please.
Yerba mate, YERBA MATE, mate, yerba mate. Yeah, I believe it's from Argentina. It's an Argentinian herb, but it's been around for hundreds of years. And it's used for people who have type 2 diabetes and a whole bunch of stuff like that. Highly beneficial for the human body. Yeah.
Now, do you mix that or do you add, because I know when I do these teas, especially with hibiscus, although I can't taste it unless I let it sit for about 24 hours and I can really taste it. I'll normally add ginger, I'll add cinnamon, I'll add cloves, and sometimes I'll even top it off with a little bit of either lemon or lime or a combination of lemon and lime. Yeah.
So if you're gonna mix it yourself, that's what that's a good mixture right there. Like I said, I just made a formulation. Yeah, I just made a formulation where it's all in one packet, and all you got to do is put a tablespoon in. But yeah. So those are extremely good for you. Those are really good for your for delaying your hunger response, but also keeping your insulin at a stable level. So then you're not, you don't keep getting the hunger pangs and stuff like that. Excellent for fasting.
Got it. And then also, what about? I just started doing this, Titus. I didn't realize I needed to do it. Because I could drink water and I'll be fine. But what I didn't realize is, and I noticed, and I'm saying this for the benefit of other people for the most part, is that you need some sodium to help with your electrolytes, because that's when you get that dizziness, when you get the shakes a little bit, is because your electrolytes are very low. And I don't think people realize, sodium, you said this to me for years, a couple of different things, but specifically about this sodium or a particular type of sodium, salt is not bad for you. It's
good for you.
So talk about that real quick about which salts are bad for you, which salts are good for you, and why you must have salt in your diet.
Well, first of all, table salt is horrible. That's processed. Sometimes there's glass particles and all that stuff, so you really don't want that. So what you're looking for is organic sea salt and or pink Himalayan salt. Now, everybody out there is trying to sell their salt, but sea salt and or pink Himalayan salt, if you go with organic salt, you're usually going to be perfectly fine. And consuming about a half a teaspoon of salt in warm water with some lemon first thing in the morning, one of the best things you can do for your body, because our bodies are electrical. So your body's like a big ass electrical circuit. And what salt does, salt is a conductor of electricity.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, thank you for teaching that.
And so what it's going to do is going to enhance your body's conductivity of its signals and all that kind of stuff like that. And so that's why having a half a teaspoon or quarter teaspoon of salt with warm water first thing in the morning is excellent for you. And also because we talked a little earlier about lower digestive juices, that compound right there will also help your body produce more hydrochloric acid, stomach acid, which will aid in digestion as well.
That'll also help with insulin resistance too, correct?
The salt?
Well, not necessarily salt, but with a lemon with the salt.
Well, no, not necessarily insulin resistance. That's not going to do much for insulin resistance, except for the fact that when you're doing that, you're not consuming sugar, and so it's, but that's not a direct impact on insulin resistance. No.
Okay, thank you for correcting that. I also want to go back to, because we didn't talk much about it, but I do want to talk about the 18-6, the 16-8, the 24-1, the 5-2, and even the OMAD, or 1 meal a day.
Right.
You could talk about that and explain what those are in terms of fasting, because I don't know if a lot of people know there's multiple ways to get fasting done, and these are just a few of those.
Yeah, so I would say the minimum amount of time you want to fast is 8 hours. All right. I mean, not 8 hours, but 12 hours. However, the truth of the matter is you're really not doing anything until you get to 16 hours. And 16-hour fast is actually very easy, because that would mean your last meal would be at 8 p.m. And your first meal would be at noon the next day.
And you're asleep for about 8 of those hours, right?
You're asleep for 6 to 8 of it, and so if you just use the first 6 hours of your day, light walk, light workout, drinking that warm water with salt and lemon, doing your tea and all those things like that, and just focus on getting clarity, before long, it's 16 hours. And for many of my clients, honestly, Michael, that thought they couldn't do it, many of them now are doing 1 meal a day or eating, at 2 and 6.
Yep. I can see that. I mean, Titus, you're absolutely right. Like, one of the things when I talk to people about this, because I always get the question about the Silver Fox Squad, how do we stay in shape thing? I'm like, listen, if you're sleeping, you can knock off 6 to 8 hours right there. So if you just stop eating 4 hours before you go to sleep, you could pick up 10 hours. You could pick up 12 hours. If you just skip breakfast, you could add another 2 to 4 hours. You had 16 hours already. So it's not as difficult as people make it out to be. It's just, if you plan it right, it'll go a lot smoother for you. For some of us, because we're so used to doing it, we can blow off 12 hours because we're working.
It's programming,
You're doing your work thing. So it's not a whole big deal, which is why I wanted you to talk to people about it, because it's not as difficult as it may seem. And you said something that's really good. Start with 8 hours. You can't do it, you can't do a 24, 15, 16, whatever. Start with 8 hours. Go to 10 hours.
I would say start with 12, because 8 hours.
Go to 12. Sorry, go to 12. Start with 12, and then you kind of, and we just gave you a formula. You're gonna be asleep for about 8 hours, right? You got
the true formula, Mike, is have your last meal at 6 p.m. Because generally, if you have a good meal at 6 p.m., you're not going to be hungry before your bedtime, which will be 10 or 11. So now that's 6 p.m. If you wake up at 6, you're already at 12. Who's eating at 6 o'clock in the morning?
Right.
All right.
Exactly.
So even if you went to 10 a.m., there goes 16. When you go to noon, now you're at 18.
Yep.
Okay. And if you're drinking adequate amounts of water and you have stuff that you have to do in first thing in the day, you're going to be fine. So that 6 p.m. cutoff, because that's another thing, you own your last meal every day should always come at or before sundown.
Talk about that, because that's important too.
Right. So the truth is that your body does not digest food well when melatonin levels are high. And when the sun starts to go down, your cortisol levels go down and melatonin starts to rise because it puts you to sleep. Your body senses melatonin rising and it shuts down your systems. Right.
Yep.
And so that's that whole circadian rhythm thing, right? But a lot of people are eating outside of their circadian rhythm. So what they're doing is they're eating at odd hours, and then they're wondering why their body feels off kilter.
Yep.
All right. So one of the first things you want to do when you wake up in the morning, try to get a face full of sun somewhere between 6 and 10 o'clock. That resets your circadian rhythm. And then when you eat with the sun, so once the sun is at its highest, that's when it's time to eat until it sets. And after that, no more eating. You'll find your sleep quality will improve, your digestion will improve, your energy levels and everything will improve because you're now on your circadian rhythm. Yep. So a lot of times, like I said, we're magnetic, we are electrical. And so that's why full moons affect people and all these things like that.
No, you're right. You're dead right on this, man. I had to reset my circadian rhythm because I was off. And people don't realize you can actually reset it. It takes a little bit of work, but you can reset it, and you'll notice that your body is more performing at a higher or optimal level once you get back on that, because you're sleeping better, you're sleeping longer, and you get a good quality sleep, which I didn't realize for years. I hadn't gotten good quality sleep, and not having good quality sleep is the worst. And I want to talk about that with fasting. We meant to do it another day, but I want you to get through this. So I'm gonna get you through it real quick because we at the hour mark. So the 18-6 method is what?
The 18-6 method is literally your last meal is at 6 p.m. Your first meal is at noon.
Right.
That's 18 hours of fasting.
Right. So that's what I was going to say. The 18 hours represents
18 hours of fasting, 6-hour eating window. So that means, now I will preface this by saying, fasting does not mean an excuse to starve yourself. Mm-hmm. Fasting is just giving you a window that you have to eat your necessary nutrients in. So even the people who eat one meal a day, right? When I'm eating one meal a day, that one meal can be 2,400 calories, because that's when I will sit down and eat a 22-ounce steak with a whole avocado and a half a sweet potato, which will give me over 2,000 calories.
Yep.
All right.
You'll be full until the next day.
Oh yeah. You're done.
Yeah.
You're done.
The 16-8.
Yeah, the 16-8. Generally, when I do the 16-8, I will start my meal at noon with a smoothie. My smoothies, I'll put 3 raw eggs, 2 cups of berries, half an avocado, 2 scoops of protein, and that's about 700 to 800 calories right there. But it's a lot of protein. And then anywhere between 4 to 6, I will then eat, a 16-ounce steak and or 5 drumsticks with avocado and maybe sweet potato or what have you. And that's what I eat for a day.
Got it. Last one meal a day.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about
one meal a day. Once again, as we were talking before with the autophagy, that gives you just a longer period of time where your body's in this fasted state. But even with that one meal a day, right? It's important to get all your nutrients. So you want to eat adequate amounts of protein dense foods, nutrient dense foods. You don't want to load up on a lot of carbs and stuff like that, because for most people who have weight issues anyway, you don't need the carbs. So load up on the protein, load up on the avocado and the vegetables, right? And get adequate amounts of that. All right. And then as far as eating one meal a day, the most optimal time to do that is to eat at 4 p.m.
And that's because what?
I find eating at 4 p.m., especially if you're going to go back-to-back 24s, right? Mm-hmm. 4 p.m. is just late in the day to where you're not going to get hungry later on at night, right? And 4 p.m. is just late in the day to where when that hunger really starts to beat on you after 12 o'clock, you only got a couple hours left to get to it.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I'm somewhere between 4 and 6 for that very reason. And what I've noticed too is, and most people don't do this, I try to go to bed at about 10, 11 o'clock. So if you do that, you're sleeping and you won't get these hunger cravings because you're asleep. So you can avoid all that, because most of us will eat crazily after 7, 8 o'clock. We're eating cookies, ice cream, chips, cake, all the stuff that you really shouldn't be eating, you're eating at that time. But if you're asleep, it's impossible for you to do that.
But a lot of those hunger cravings that you get is because the meal you ate wasn't nutrient dense. So if the meal you eat has a lot of protein in it, right, you will not get hunger cravings later on.
Wow. You just told me something. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So if you eat nutrient dense, so a whole steak, tons of protein, right? Yep. You will not get hunger cravings for at least 9 hours, because that's how long it takes your body to fully absorb and digest good protein. 6 to 9 hours.
Got it.
And then when you wake up in the morning, once you have started the fasting regimen, generally our bodies reset and you wake up in the morning. If you've now built the habit of not eating breakfast, you won't even think about food for the first 6 hours.
That's true.
And then your body will start to say, hey man, when we're going to eat? Around about 12. And that's when you have to deal with it. And that's where things like the tea and all those things come into play to help you to extend your fast time.
Yep. And I love that. Listen, man, we're a little bit over an hour, but I wanted to tell you, thank you so much. We're going to have to come back again, Titus, and do this and talk about food, meal prep, all the rest of that kind of stuff, because, you know, that's a huge part of this as well. Yeah. That'll help you in this battle with trying to stay healthy, trying to keep fit and all the rest of these kinds of things. Especially, again, as a man, we got to make sure we get the protein, make sure we get the exercise and all the rest of this stuff. And it's sleep. That's one of the things I wanted you to talk about. If you don't mind, just give it like a minute or so, because I didn't realize until 2 years ago how important sleep is, and the lack of sleep, how it messes with your whole. I don't care if you're eating well. I don't care if you're fasting. I don't care if you're taking all the supplements in the world. If you aren't sleeping, talk about what that does to you. It's
going to throw off everything. It's going to throw off your hormones and everything, because as we said in the beginning, rest, regenerate, recuperate, repair. All those things happen when you're asleep. When, as a man, your testosterone levels are built up in your sleep. Mm-hmm. If you're not sleeping properly, your testosterone levels will stay depressed because your cortisol levels are high. It's only during sleep that your cortisol levels drop and your testosterone is allowed to rise.
So I know I said I won't keep you long, but this right here, you just said something else. You got to talk to us about cortisone. I just learned about how important, what paying attention to your cortisone levels are and what it does to your body when those levels are off as well. So I got to have you talk about that, because that's too important, especially for a man to not talk about.
Well, cortisol affects everybody. So not even just men and women, but cortisol is your stress hormone. Cortisol is the hormone your body releases when you wake up in the morning to wake you up. Mm-hmm. But when you get that, remember I told you about getting that face full of sun?
Yep.
When you get a face full of sun, melatonin is manufactured in behind your eyes. So that face full of sun triggers your body to start manufacturing melatonin. And your body manufactures melatonin all day long until the evening time, because as it's manufacturing melatonin and the melatonin levels go up, it drives the cortisol down.
Say that again, Titus, because that is the key right there. I didn't realize melatonin was connected to cortisol like that.
Yes.
I didn't realize that. So one more time for us, please.
So a face full of sun. You ever went and sat in the sun and then you came back and around about 6 or 7 o'clock, you just felt drained?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Why? Because you built up a high amount of melatonin, and now that melatonin is driving your cortisol down.
Oh.
We're not supposed to be up at 10 o'clock. We're not supposed to be up at 10 o'clock. Okay? And so our bodies are, when we're moving according to circadian rhythm, right? I know we live in urban places with lights and all that stuff like that, but we're not supposed to be up at 10 o'clock. Okay? We're supposed to rise with the sun and set with the sun. So by 9 o'clock, when it's pitch black, we're supposed to be sleeping. And that is when your melatonin levels are at their highest, and they have driven your cortisol levels to their lowest, which then induces sleepiness. Go to sleep.
Wow. Okay. You taught us a lot. That's why I said, I told people at the beginning, get your paper and pen out, because you're going to learn a lot today. Before I get out of here today, I got to say this real quick. Today's podcast is sponsored by yours truly, JL Michaels Custom Clothing. If you're looking for custom-made clothing, look no further. Come and see us. We make clothing for men, women, children, boys, girls, everyone. Doesn't matter what your size is, we can get you taken care of. www.jlmichaels.com, www.jlmichaels.com. Titus, it has been informal or informational as always. I learn a lot every time we talk about this. I definitely want to bring you back to kind of continue and piggyback on this, because one of the things we really didn't get into that I really would love for you to talk about, and this is something we have to do in person, because the cooking thing, in the meal prepping, and then, you know, what you're eating and what people may want to consider eating, and then the myths, debunking some of the myths around eating too much meat, and especially red meat. I want to talk about, exactly, right? So I want to talk about all that, but I do want to tell you, man, thank you so much for coming on, for educating our audience. for helping us understand why fasting is so important. Why, you need to get, we didn't talk about this, but a full panel, especially to check out where your minerals are and where your mineral levels are, because most of us are deficient probably across the board, but we don't know it because we've never been tested for it. About, eating, just the whole thing of intermittent fasting, all that kind of stuff. Thank you so much. And then thank you on behalf of the Silver Fox Squad, man, for keeping us right, making sure that when we take pictures, we aren't all bloated, that we're in great shape at 50 plus years old at these, because most of us are like in the late deep 50s.
Yeah, we deep in the 50s.
we deep in the 50s, and people don't realize it because they look at us and they're like, man, you guys are in great physical shape. And I always tell people, and this is the last thing I'll go when I want you to close us out, is that, for us to look as good as we do on our clothing, this is what it takes. This is a part of our regimen. This is what we do on a daily basis. It's not a fad thing. We have to do this because this is our job for the most part. This is what we do to get paid, or how we earn our living. So all of these things matter. And I pray that, and I hope that men and women will have heard something today that was inspirational. They could take with them and begin to implement and say, you know what, let me at least try, because I want to live a better life, but I want to have a quality of life, because that's even more important.
Yeah, so like I said, man, it's a pleasure. And like I said, when it comes down to topics like this, it's such a wealth of information, and there's so many ways that we can spurn off. So it definitely requires more than one conversation. I'm glad we had this start, and I'll be more than happy to come on and continue this.
Got it. You want to give your socials out real quick so people know how to reach you?
Yeah, so everything is Titus Unlimited. So you went to Google and you put in Titus Unlimited, everything comes up. TitusUnlimited.com, Titus Unlimited on Instagram, Titus Unlimited on Facebook. If you're on social media, look for the blue check. If it's not a blue check, it's not me.
Thanks for saying that. And then also too, as far as I'm concerned, you can find me right here, Mandatory Conversations Podcast with Mike Johnson. Do me a favor, if you aren't already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel, like, share, please do all those different kinds of things. It makes a difference. The algorithm, we need you to help get this message out, to help grow the channel, to help keep men fit and keep men fit, safe, sound, all these other kinds of things. We're going to bring you entertainment, but we need the information as well. We can't just, always do something that's entertaining. We need some information that's going to help keep us alive, keep our bodies fit, keep our minds fit, and all the rest of the kind of good stuff. Thank you so much for joining us on this evening. We are out of here. We'll see you next week. Come back and see us. Peace.
All right, later.
Hang on, Titus. I'm gonna take care of us 1 second. Hold on 1 second.
Okay.